What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Seahawks Now, your home for all things daily Seattle Seahawks news, rumors, and, of course, updates. Today, big rumors on the Micah Parsons front. We haven't touched on this for a while, but there's a new article out about Micah Parsons and the possibility of him coming to the Seahawks. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we discussed the first look at a couple of Seahawks quarterbacks, Jalen Milroe, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock. The first impressions, according to Greg Bell of the News Tribune. And last but not least, a couple of offensive line surprises looking to make the team. Again, fresh news out of OTAs. With that all being said, guys, this is Seahawks Now. My name is Levi. Let's get into it. So Micah Parsons. Yes, talking about Micah Parsons again. I know it's been a while since we've touched on that, but that's because it's been a while since we've seen news out about the Cowboys superstar. According to Randy Gurzy, writing for Seahawks on Sports Illustrated, it's unlikely to happen, but the Seahawks, they could vastly improve their defense with a blockbuster trade with Dallas. Yeah, they could. With training camp quickly approaching, the Seahawks could still find a way to bolster their roster. Seattle needs more help when it comes to rushing the passer, and Hayden Victoria of Pro Football Network says they could try to pull off a blockbuster trade with a player who is in the midst of his own contract negotiation. Micah Parsons has been a no-show at OTAs, which has been leading to more renewed discussions about maybe a potential trade. Now, is he going to hold out? I'm not sure. Some people in Dallas are saying that, yeah, he will be at training camp. That is what their head coach, Brian Schottenheimer, is saying. But what if he's not? What if he's not at training camp? What if he does decide to hold out? What if he really does want a better contract? And what if he says, I'm not going to play unless you trade me or extend me? Well, here's what they write at Pro Football Focus. Quote, Seattle has a strong roster but lacks a true game-changing edge rusher. With significant cap space after recent moves, the Seattle Seahawks could make a bold play for Parsons to anchor their defense for years to come. It would certainly be costly. It would. They would have to extend him. They'd have to pay him a lot. They'd have to pay him about $40 million per season in an extension, and it would probably have to be a 5 or 6 year contract. Here's what Randy Gurzy says for Seahawks on SI. He says, as fun as it sounds, quote, this blockbuster trade might be a pipe dream, and I do think that it's probably more of a pipe dream than an actual legitimate possibility. Micah Parsons is a really good player. I would love to see him in Seattle. At the same time, I understand that he's expensive, and the chances that he even gets traded feels pretty low. Here's the other thing I'll say about Micah Parsons. Out of all of the players that the Seahawks could trade for in a blockbuster deal, he's probably the one that I would be least excited about. The problem with Micah Parsons is he is a bit of a talker. You know, he has his podcast, and I think he kind of got in some trouble last year with the Cowboys for maybe talking a little bit too much smack. I know he kind of rubs people the wrong way sometimes. That doesn't take away from the fact that he's a really good player. Every year in his career, he's had at least 12 sacks. He has 52 sacks in 4 seasons. That's really, really good. Last year, he started 13 games, 12 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, 23 quarterback hits. His approximate value, I mean, he was at an 8 last year, which was the career low. Before that, 15, 19, and 18. I guess the big question is he ever going to reach the peak that he did in his age 23 season when he was Defensive Rookie of the Year, and then the next season, Defensive Player of the Year runner-up. Last year, he came in 17th in Defensive Player of the Year voting, and he did not make an All-Pro roster. So I guess that's the question is, will he ever reach his peak that he was at age 23? And could he maybe get just a little bit of his personality stuff under control and just get a little bit more focused on football and less focused on the podcast and some of the off-the-field stuff? But that's not to take away from him. I mean, he's a really good player. I still think that if you do trade for him, he changes the way this defense functions. Personally, I would rather trade for Trey Hendrickson if you're going to make a trade for one of these disgruntled stars. But he is in that same class. I mean, it's Parsons, Watt, Bosa, Hendrickson, Max Crosby, Chris Jones, Myles Garrett. That's probably the list. There's like 7 guys who can do what Micah Parsons can do. And he does change the game. Having a guy like him changes the game. So if you want that, then go out and get him. And but again, will the Cowboys, do they even want to trade him? Probably not. And it would definitely be costly, not only for the trade, but also to end up doing that extension. It's going to cost a lot of money. All right, let's move on to the quarterback stuff. We're going to be analyzing Sam Darnold, Jalen Milroe, and Drew Lock's performance at OTAs. This is according to an article in the News Tribune from Greg Bell. He gave his first impressions from training camp. He writes, "It's early June. The season doesn't start for another 3+ months. So, yes, these are just first impressions." However, he does say it is important. Obviously, the quarterback is an important position. And obviously, this is going to determine a lot about the season, is how the quarterbacks do. So it says, clear starter Sam Darnold threw 2 interceptions in 3 red zone plays. Not a great look. Julian Love got one of those, and then Josh Jobe picked him off the second time. So not great. Darnold's offense struggled to the point where new offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak let Darnold know about it loudly as the quarterback stood in the huddle between plays. He writes, "The starting defense loved that." Darnold obviously is coming off a really good season, so he gets a little bit more slack. But yeah, it's interesting to write that, yeah, he did struggle against the defense through a couple of interceptions. Now, maybe that just means our defense is really good. Or maybe it means that, yeah, Darnold is kind of struggling to get acclimated. I wouldn't necessarily blame him if he was. It's a new city, new coach, new offense, new receivers. It will take him some time. Devon Witherspoon says he has strengths and weaknesses like every quarterback. Now that he's on our team, he's going to go out there and make a lot of plays for us. We put a lot of trust in him, and I believe he's going to deliver. Now, Witherspoon was then asked about Cooper Kupp. He says that's different. Just to get to line up against him and to see him every day in practice, the way he can run routes and make everything look the same, it's a good diversity. And then you've got Jackson on the other side. And I think that's going to help us way better at corner. So that's good to see. Drew Lock apparently looked very sharp on Monday. This is his his third year as the backup with the Seahawks. Last year he went to the Giants. Lock threw touchdown passes on 2 consecutive plays inside the 5-yard line. He threw a dart pass to Cody White, the leaping wide receiver, caught it, beating out cornerback Nehemiah Pritchett. And then he threw another touchdown to rookie tight end Elijah Arroyo, the second-round pick, who was mostly playing with the second-team offense. He did play a little bit with Darnold, but mostly played with Lock as part of the second-team offense. Lock's throw had Seahawks general manager John Schneider walking from the sideline to in front of the portable video screen that shows replays. The GM exclaimed his wonder at the throw. All right, and moving on to Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe, rookie quarterback, the third-rounder from Alabama. He was way off, apparently, on his first throw of red zone scrimmaging. His pass was 3 yards over the head of wide receiver Ricky White. And then on the next play, he was picked off by cornerback J.T. Woods. He also missed behind receivers during 11-on-11 scrimmaging. So yeah, it is the first impression, but it proves what we kind of already know. He's definitely a project. His throwing fundamentals are pretty weak, but yeah, he definitely can run. He can run the football pretty well. So it'll be interesting to see how he projects, how they continue to grow, but that's just the early impressions from Greg Bell. All right, let's move on to some more early impressions. Breakout offensive linemen at OTAs in the mix for roster spots. This is interesting. New details are emerging about the Seattle Seahawks starting offensive line, writes Connor Benintendi for Seahawks on SI. He writes, all eyes are on the Seahawks offensive line as the team progresses through OTAs, mandatory minicamp, and into training camp. Seattle obviously picked a couple of linemen. They picked Gray Zabel. They also picked Christian Haynes. And what's interesting is last year, the third-round pick, Christian Haynes, taking snaps with the starters at right guard. He was passed up last year as a starter. They wanted Satawa Laumea instead of him. But this year, Laumea was taking second-team reps, Christian Haynes taking third-team reps, which is interesting to me. Jalen Sundell also took some first-team reps at center, which is notable considering that it might actually be a competition between him and Olu Oluwatimi. I think a lot of people just thought Oluwatimi was going to be the starting center this year, so interesting to hear that, yeah, it actually might not be the case. So it looks like right now the starting lineup is Charles Cross at tackle, Gray Zabel at left guard, Christian Haynes at right guard, Abe Lucas at right tackle. And then, that center battle. I still think that Oluwatimi is the front runner with Jalen Sundell as that's probably the backup, but who knows? Maybe Sundell does get in there. Now, assuming that Lucas, Zabel, and Cross can stay healthy, I think that is a pretty good offensive line, all things considered. The second team, then, you got guys like Michael Jarrell, Satoa Lamea, Anthony Bradford, and Josh Jones. If any of the starters do get hurt, I still think the backup group is a little bit weak, so that's my qualms. But I'm excited to see what this offensive line can do. I do think that it could be an improved offensive line from years past. With that all being said, guys, that's going to wrap things up for today. As always, make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you want more content, and until next time, as always, go Seahawks.